Jeg håber, at de måske ligesom mig sådan... I'm going to speak English now because Alan needs to understand what I'm saying.
I can never understand what she's saying.
Well, I hope you enjoyed the movie. I want to say thank you so much for coming out and supporting us. And here is the one and only Alan Wilder.
Hi, then. Hi. Yes, that's the one and only Jeannie Mortensen, who's been helping set up some of these events, the last few screenings in Scandinavia and a few others as well. And I hope you can understand her. She is from your city, so you should, because I have a bit of trouble, but anyway.
That's a man-woman thing, I think.
Too soon. Oh, yeah. Have you been on the piss already? Thank you all for coming. I'm sure some of you were at the Copenhagen Library this afternoon. So if you've heard too much of me talking already, you may leave now. Yes? Are you sure? All right, if you want to stay, then I'll chat some more. We have to keep it a little bit brief because there's a second Q&A going to happen in about half an hour's time. So I won't prattle on for very long. I'd rather just take some questions from you people mainly. Just a few words about the film. I mean, you know what it's all about. You've seen it. It's not rocket science. It's a concert movie, hopefully with a bit of a difference, a little bit more abstract, a little bit more unusual than your average concert film. And the most interesting aspect for me about it is the way it came together. A film crew basically just turned up out of the blue. Oh, would you care to join us? And it was a bit long, and the bladder's a bit full, I know. The crew who made this film just kind of turned up pretty much out of the blue in Budapest that day and said, look, we've got 7 guys here with cameras. Can we shoot the concert? No obligation, and we'll see what happens. And if you like what we do, maybe we can take it further, edit together some rough cuts and see if we can turn it into something. And I thought this was too good an offer to refuse. So I just said, of course you may, let's take it forward from there, and it all happened to work out. And really the whole project has worked out brilliantly in that respect, in that it's not funded by any production companies, it's not funded by any record companies, it's pretty much a fan-driven thing. I've put some money up to help get it to a finality, but we've basically got everyone involved who has come to me and said, we want to do this, we want to make this happen. And it's very heartwarming and moving for me to see that I have such loyal support and people that are willing to get involved. The people that did the artwork, they're all from Hungary, and the crew themselves. And so that's really all I want to tell you about the film. The rest is, as I say, fairly obvious. So since we're fairly short on time tonight, I want to just ask you to put some questions to me, and I'll try and answer them as best I can.
Okay. We have one here in the front.
Did you ever think about bringing some of your singers on the tour? And in case you did, why didn't you?
Yeah. Well, it's fairly logistically difficult to do that for obvious reasons. There's many different vocalists that have contributed to Recoil over the years. And as you heard tonight, it's a combination of all the albums and all the remixes and various versions we've done, plus a bit of Depeche Mode thrown in there and some other people. So to find one single vocalist, or many vocalists, to come on the road and do that would have been not very cost effective, very difficult with people's schedules, and it just wasn't really a viable thing to do. So I tried to take the approach of putting something together that worked mainly without the vocals, and that could somehow still work in that environment. But yes, you have to consider costs with these things. I didn't want to pay a huge band and then a load of vocalists to come on the road, because we just would have lost a load of money. Simple as that. It worked? I'm glad you thought so. How did it sound in here tonight? Was it okay?
Great.
We had one or two little issues. Thank you. When we were testing the sound yesterday, we had a few issues, and I was slightly concerned, but I think we sorted it all out this morning. So it's slightly difficult with cinema because the system is configured for regular movies, and the distributors of regular movies have quite strict guidelines about how each cinema has to set up the audio system. So you can't really come in and EQ the system much. You can maybe increase the subwoofer a bit, but you can't do too much to what's there. So you have to kind of accept what the cinema has. And the rooms are okay here, of course, but, you know, for music, it's not perhaps ideal. I would have liked to have maybe EQ'd the sound a little bit differently. So I'm always slightly concerned how it sounds. But anyway, can we have another?
Very anal.
I'm Anal Wilder. That's what they call me.
Question, please.
Yes.
Well, I was wondering if the German band Kraftwerk did have any influence on your work.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I was talking a little bit about this afternoon when I first joined Depeche Mode and met Daniel Miller and got involved with Mute Records. My outlook about how to go about making music changed quite considerably, quite drastically, because I was working with people that came from the background of punk rock, where the attitude was you didn't have to be a great musician, you could just, as long as you had some ideas, you could just get up and do it, you know. And that opened my eyes because I was classically trained and all this. So when I met Daniel Miller in particular, he introduced me to a lot of that late 70s German music, you know, DAF, Kraftwerk, Tangerine Dream, Can, all those kind of bands, and a lot of the early Mute artists, Bad Gadget, all these different people that were working with electronics. So I got to know Kraftwerk well, of course, at that time, and I've always loved them, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Is it okay?
Yes, hello.
Okay, good. I'm just curious about your collaboration with Diamanda Galas on Strange Hours, because she's such an amazing vocalist with that huge range, and it's a bit different the way she worked with you, because she was so much more restrained. I wonder if there was something you could tell us about that.
Yeah, I was a little bit nervous about working with her because I didn't really know what to expect. I'd heard a few stories, you know.
She's
And
got that diva attitude.
She certainly has some diva qualities.
Yeah.
But actually I found that I got along with her really easily, even though she takes over the room, you know, and
Did she
she's
scare
a-
you a bit?
Hmm?
Did she scare you a bit?
Yeah, I guess I was a bit nervous. You know, I was worried that she might have some problems with the way I work, because you're quite right to say I'm very detailed and kind of anal about it all. And but I've noticed, working with lots of different singers and other musicians, that it's usually the ones with extreme talent that when you get them in the studio are the most relaxed. And it's the people that are self-conscious or inhibited about their own, you know, worried about their own talent, that actually end up with the diva overtone. So as soon as we put Diamanda in front of a microphone, she was a breeze to work with, you know. Absolutely easy. She just did her thing and I didn't have to say a word, really. And the way I work is to soak up like a sponge any performance that any musician or singer gives to me. So, you know, I just hit record and she went off, and every take she did was completely different. And this just gives me a massive amount of source material to then put into my machines and do what I want with it. And she had a great attitude to that. You know, she didn't want to dictate, she didn't even want to hear back what she'd done. She was just trusted that it would be good and that I could use it, and that's exactly how it was. So, yeah, she was great. Really good.
Question here?
Yeah, I got the mic. I remember a story about you almost getting hit by a jet plane or something like that.
Yeah.
Tornado.
Can you
Yes.
elaborate? Because I can't remember it, but did you, like, were you close to being killed or? No, it's exciting. I wanna, like, was it?
Exciting
it's a great
idea,
story,
having
it's a
me
great
killed.
story.
You're not planning to have me killed tonight, are you?
No, just like I like the concept of like it was.
No,
No,
it's
You just
it is-
driving along and
It is true, but just prior to making the Liquid album, I was on holiday in Scotland. We were driving in an open-top car, and a tornado jet bomber crashed literally in front of us. And, you know, you could virtually see the pilot coming down. And this thing was travelling at 400 miles an hour or something, so it disintegrated to nothing. Right in front of us with the ash raining down on the car. So it was quite an experience, you know, and had we been, say, 10 seconds further into our journey, that would have been it. So it was a close shave. And I tried, it stayed with me, as you can imagine it would. And I tried to somehow draw on that experience when I was making certain parts of that album. And I tried to use the idea of a pilot's final thoughts as a kind of concept for the songs, but I didn't write the songs or the words, so it's only my own interpretation, my way of making sense of what I had musically. the black box tracks, which starts and ends the Liquid album, is obviously based around that idea. So there you go. But I survived.
Next question.
Hi, Alan.
Yes,
Glad
hello.
you're live.
From one band who will never release another record to another, in the beginning of the movie you used a piece by Boards of Canada. What do they mean to you?
Well, I just enjoy what they did, and actually I put together a little CD before the start of each live show we play to play as a sort of pre-music CD, and their track happened to be the one that we went on stage to that night, and I thought, well, just keep it in there. It's great, you know, and it set the mood nicely. So yes, that's it really. Any more?
Hi, Alan. First of all, thank you for your contribution to the beautiful music you made.
Yeah, I see you. Thank you.
I was just wondering, as Recoil is doing a lot of atmospheric sound, have you ever considering doing music scores like we see in Trent Reznor from 90 Snares doing stuff?
Yeah, I am considering it, and I have thought about it. It's not the first time I've considered it, of course, but I've always had a little bit of trepidation getting involved with film companies, because I know they like to control things, and I like to control things. So I imagine, you know, it could be a bit tricky. But on the other hand, you know, it would be an obvious move, I think, for what I do to get more involved in film. And we were talking about this earlier. David Rossi is here tonight, in fact. He's somewhere, there he is. And we were chatting together about maybe trying to work on a few things together with a view to that. Also, albums are becoming, I don't want to say redundant, but less important to people. You know, it's a new generation of music listeners who place much more emphasis on downloads, cherry-picking single songs, and the album concept is something that doesn't seem to be so appealing to people anymore. I mean, I still enjoy a good album, of course, but so I want to just keep an open mind about what I do next, and if I do make some music for film, it could turn into an album as well. It could be one and the same, you know, who knows? So I'm keeping an open mind. I'm putting a few feelers out, and I'd like to meet a few good directors. Any great Danish directors anyone want to recommend? You? Okay, that's it then. Me and him. So there you go, that's yeah.
Yeah. I've been thinking a couple of times when listening to Recoil, and it hit me again when watching your movie, especially with the Jezebel sample, that your way of working with Recoil, is it directly or more or less directly inspired by the Eno Byrne album, My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, the way you put together these different samples from culture, media, and different vocals, because you're like the mastermind gathering together all these bits?
Well, we've already done an interview.
Oh yeah. Do you want to continue, or should we get more personal this time? What colour panties do you wear, Alan? Anal Wilder?
Actually, I don't wear panties. I don't wear underwear.
Bloody hell.
I
Okay,
like
you
to
can
go
have...
commando. Actually, that album, I'd completely forgotten about it, and then I rediscovered it, because I used to own it on vinyl and everything, and then I rediscovered it a couple of years back, and remembered how groundbreaking it was, because I think it was released in around 1978, 79 perhaps, by Brian Eno and David Byrne. My Life in the Bush of Ghosts, it's called. And from memory, I can't think of another album prior to that that did what that did. And it was basically a precursor to sampling, wasn't it? Where I'm not sure how, they must have done it with tape loops, I suppose. Yeah, exactly. And but it's a very similar process to using, you know, other sources. You know, in their case, there were gospel choirs and all kinds of people on there, looped on tapes, and then they would add other rhythm loops and other musical parts to that, and they were putting something together that no one had really gone through that process before. I guess Pink Floyd did the odd tape loop, you know, on Dark Side of the Moon, but this was something else. So it was a very groundbreaking record, yeah. And I think a lot of people aren't aware of it either.
Here we go. Question here.
Hi, Alan
Yes.
again.
You missed out this afternoon.
Yes, I have two questions actually. Why did you call your project Recoil, and how do you find the singers for your tracks?
Well, the name really didn't come from anywhere special. It was just something that popped into my head, and I thought that sounds quite good. And the sort of idea that the music may actually cause you to recoil is kind of a nice idea, you know, that it's not music that just washes over. You have to sort of engage with it, you know. So it seemed to suit the project. And the second part of your question was, where do I get the singers from? It really depends on the music. I let the music decide first. So I don't have too many preconceived ideas. There's a few singers I like, of course, but usually when I start working on something, it suggests the singer to me. And at that point, I think, oh yeah, this needs a female voice, or it needs a blues singer, or something like that. And that's when I start having ideas about how I can research who might be up for it, who's available, or even a sample. Sometimes I work with a sampled voice that I know that I can't really use, but it's a way to get me going, you know. And in the case of the Golden Gate Gospel Quartet, I ended up, that was going to be like a guide vocal, and it ended up being so great, I thought, well, I've got to get permission to use this particular thing, and it's a whole sampled vocal. So, as I say, I keep it open, I let the music dictate it.
Your warm-up act for the
What
tour.
are you doing with that iPad?
I'm filming you.
Don't you just hate it when people do that?
You're on
How many
YouTube
people
in
just
5
held up their
minutes.
phone and filmed the whole thing?
Oh, that's so great. It's a memory for me.
Okay.
Your warm-up act, Architect, with Daniel Meyer.
Yeah.
How did that come about?
Yeah, our Spanish promoter recommended him to, he just threw a CD at me one day and said, you've got to listen to this. And it was Architect, their Consume, Adapt, Create album. And I was, at the time, I was working out in the gym, and I used to put this album on, and I just really found it really hypnotic. So I thought, well, I'm going to write to this guy and see if he's up for doing something, and he was. And that's how we met, and you know, started chatting, and then I invited him along to play some support slots on the tour, and we got to know each other. I realised he's very prolific. He knocks out remixes every week, and you know, he has lots of things, fingers in pies, lots of music on the go all the time. So we just got friendly, and then he ended up doing the Want remixes. In fact, some of the music you heard in the film is from his remix of Want, which is the 3rd track or something. So, you know, that's what I like about this film. There's little bits of everything. There's no complete tracks, really, but there's lots of sections and pieces, and I like to use some of the more unusual remixes that have been done, you know. Yes, sir.
You use some samples from Tubeway Army, and I'm a
yeah.
big Gary Newman fan,
Yeah.
and I have this wet dream about you
Gotcha.
two working together. Is that ever going to happen in
I'm
some way?
not sure we're actually very good friends. I know Gary and his wife Gemma really, really well. They've actually just emigrated to the States, which was a big move for them. The reason I threw that little bit in there was because at the time we were just about to play a concert with them in Chicago on the tour, and we were playing around rearranging some of the music. I thought, oh, this will be funny, and I won't tell him, I'll just throw it in, see if he notices. He didn't even notice it. So there you go. And he was out watching the show, but he didn't even notice his own track. But he's a lovely fella, yeah.
Well, this is going to be the last question, but there is another screening room. It's a cell 2, and there is space if somebody wants to go in there. So, so this is the last question, and then we can all, you know, everybody who wants can go in there if you want another Q&A. Otherwise, it's
Same
meet
old
and
thing.
greet in about 30 minutes downstairs in the foyer, and there's going to be DJs, and now it's, you know, all the highs and all the how we feel right now. We need to get that out.
Thank you. See what I mean? It doesn't make any sense.
So, Alan, do you remember the Facebook chat we had that I wrote to you, can you come to Copenhagen and play at the opera? That's
Yeah.
actually me. Yes.
Oh, that was you, was it?
Yes.
Okay.
So, no, it's about the Recoil thing is that I think about this dramatic thing in your music. How do you relate to your music in a dramatic way, or the feelings in the...
It's,
Well,
oh.
very cool.
He's from from Oslo.
My no, he's not from Oslo.
He's from Poland.
My process of working on music, like I was saying with the vocalist, really, it's an instinctive reaction for me. It's a series of sound experiments, and if it does something to me, then I'll go forward with it. If I'm not getting any feeling from it, I'll reject it. And then that leads me to the next thing, and I gradually build up a sound picture. And over time, it can start to sort of make sense to me. But the important thing is to trust that process and know that if I do follow that process, I'll end up with something that sounds like me, whatever my sound is. And that's it. I just have to follow my way of working to get there. And if that includes dramatic moments or dark moments, then that's just something that naturally comes from me, you know. People ask me why is the music dark. I don't really know. Quickly. Yeah.
Some of the things that Alan is doing is quite cinematic.
Yeah. Yes, it is. It's again, you know, to me, it's important to create a wide picture. The detail, the sound detail, the sonic detail is very important. That everything has its place, and we're able to space the sounds out so they don't conflict with each other, and they create an atmosphere. An atmosphere. Got to have an atmosphere, you know. It's really important to me, and if it doesn't have it, I'm not going to move forward with that piece of music. You know, it could still go in many directions, but it's got to have something, some kind of feeling behind it, something that moves you.
Now I have to take Alan to the other screening room. You're more than welcome. And again, afterwards, in about 30 minutes, we're going to be downstairs. Alan is going to sign and talk and take pictures. And the DJs is definitely dancing and playing for you. So get ready to dance. But thank you so very much, Alan. Thank you so very much to everybody.
Thanks so much for coming. Thank you.